Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming along today. We're just going to give it about another 30 seconds or so that we can get everyone admitted. I can see that people are coming through pretty thick and fast. Popular webinar, this one. So we just want to make sure that everybody who wants to come along has been admitted before we get started. But I can definitely see them moving on. Thank you all so much for coming along today, taking time out of your work day or out of your day to come and learn a bit more about the investment options within superannuation. Really do appreciate you taking time out of your day. And hopefully you are going to find this interesting and get some good information. I'll give it about another 10 or 15 seconds. Looks like nearly everybody is through. All right, I think we might kick it off. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar on investment options within superannuation. My name is Peter Hoban, and I'm a member account manager with Brighter Super. An important part of my role is guiding our valued members through to a comfortable retirement. And part of that is by giving them a better understanding of their superannuation account. Not surprisingly, one of the things I get asked most about is the investment options available. So by the end of this webinar, we aim to give you some useful information to help you understand your options. I'm also going to be asking you some questions as we go through this webinar to help you get a better understanding of the content. Today, also lucky enough to be joined by Vicky Short. Vicky is one of our trusted financial advisors up in Townsville, joining us all the way from Townsville. And she'll be able to speak about how advice can help you make the right investment decision. And we're also joined by Rebecca Harvey. So she's the manager of the Key Member Services, my manager, and she will be monitoring our questions in the chat room today. But before we get things underway, Brighter Super does acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, and we do pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. We do acknowledge and celebrate the continuation of a living culture that has a unique role in this region. It is also important to understand that the information and the examples contained in this webinar are general in nature, and they have been prepared without taking into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. It is really important that when you're making decisions about your super options, that you do obtain the relevant product disclosure statement and the target market determination, and you do consider your own personal circumstances. You can access these documents and our privacy policy and financial services guide from the Brighter Super website. So today's presentation will run for about 30 minutes. Many of you have submitted questions. We've already tried to incorporate those questions in today's presentation, but you can also post questions in the Q&A feature during the presentation, and we'll aim to answer those directly. Now, as mentioned, we have Rebecca Harvey standing by as moderator today. As I said, Rebecca Harvey is my manager. She has been with the fund for over 5 years, and she is, apart from managing me, also out and about talking to our members all over Queensland. Beck.
Yep. I'm looking forward to hearing you speak today, Peter and Vicky, and also looking forward to answering any questions that you might pop into the chat. And if I'm unable to answer them in the chat, we may answer them live at the end, should we have some time.
Great opportunity to get some of your questions answered there, folks. Now, we're also going to be running some poll questions throughout today's presentation. When the question pops up on your screen, please just click on an answer that is appropriate to you. No right or wrong answers. Now, you don't have to worry about taking too many notes because we are going to send you a recording of this presentation in the coming days. So just before we start today, I guess I want to take a moment just to briefly explain who we are, because we have had some changes and we do have some non-members attending the presentation today. So the merger between LGIA Super and Energy Super, plus the acquisition of Suncorp Super, has enabled us to increase our size and scale, yet we are able to remain committed to investing in that personalised member services that you know and enjoy. We now serve over 230,000 members, and we actually have over $32 billion in funds under management. Our My Super option ranked in the top 5 funds in the peer super ratings last financial year. Now, let's talk superannuation investments. So you're able to make a number of choices about your superannuation, and one of the most important is deciding how your super is invested. The investment options you choose could make a big difference to your super earnings over time. And there are various factors to consider when you're making your decision. Some of these factors might include how long is your money going to be invested for? What's your time frame? How comfortable you are with volatility? What is your risk appetite? What's the level of return that you expect? What is your return expectation? What are the other investments that you do have? Are you diversifying your portfolio? And what is the amount of money that you're investing? What do you have to work with? One of the most useful pieces of information that a superannuation fund sends their members is their annual benefit statement. So the annual benefit statement contains important information such as the contributions that were made during a financial year, any insurance that someone may hold, any beneficiaries that might be there on the account. Importantly, that annual benefit statement also provides information on the investment option that a person may be in, what the investment performance was over that previous financial year. If you're looking for information about which investment option you're in, your annual benefit statement is a great place to start. And the best place to get your annual benefit statement is on your Member Online portal. Logging on to your Member Online, down the left-hand side of the screen, it says Statements and Letters, and you can actually download your statements there. If you're unable to access things online, we are also able to email or, even if you need, post you out a copy of that annual benefit statement. So now you know where to find what investment option you might be in. Let's take a high-level view at what investment options may be available within superannuation. So some people think of their super as a single asset, my superannuation, but it can potentially be invested in many different assets. Most super funds offer different types of investment choices to their members. Investment choice is selecting which asset class you're invested in. So it can be things like Australian shares, international shares, fixed interest, cash, even property. Investment options offered by super funds can either be diversified, so you're investing in a mix of those different asset classes, or they can be what they call single sector options. So just investing in one asset class, Australian shares, cash. Now, diversification can be achieved by choosing one of those ready-made options, such as a growth or a balanced investment option, or by choosing your own mix of those single sector asset classes, choosing your own mix of things like shares, property, cash. Now, one thing that I am interested in finding out from the people that we've got attending here today, how many people, this is one of those poll questions, how many people know which investment option they are invested in? Click on the answer, yes or no, that applies to you. Let's see where we sit. Wow, so the answer's coming through thick and fast here. Oh, fantastic. Nearly 100% response here. Okay, well, the great news is that 80%, 4 out of 5 people actually know what investment option they're in. For that remaining 20%, don't feel bad about that. But what I would recommend is maybe after this presentation or maybe tonight, logging on to your Member Online and actually having a look at, what is the investment option that you are in. Now, assets such as equities, otherwise known as shares, they're described as growth assets. So these growth assets may see volatility over the short time. The value might go up or down, but over longer time periods, you would generally expect higher growth. Asset classes such as cash or maybe fixed interest, these are sometimes described as defensive options. So they carry less risk in terms of volatility of the returns, less risk in the potential for capital loss, but they also offer less potential for high returns. These options are generally described as low risk, low return options. Ready-made diversified options, they're generally made up of different mixes of those growth and defensive options. Now, investment options do vary from fund to fund. Some super funds define their investment options in terms of their risk characteristics. So they may label them things such as a growth or a balanced strategies. Other superannuation funds may offer more specialist options. They might have strategies that are described as a socially responsible approach. Some other funds actually let members have greater control over selecting the underlying investments. So potentially choosing, mostly shares or even down to the individual company. Now, you do not have to make an investment choice. If you choose not to make an investment choice, your money will be invested in a super fund's default investment option. So for Brighter Super, that is our My Super option, the one that I was talking about that was in the top 5, our default option, top 5 in the super ratings. Depending on your personal time frame, your personal risk appetite, and your own personal return expectation, that default option may not be the right option for you. It is really important to understand that everybody's personal situation is different, and everybody's attitude towards risk and return is different. As we said, for details on what investment option you may be in with Brighter Super, please check your annual benefit statement, check your member online, or simply give us a call and we can let you know. Now, you may have heard the phrase before, past performance is not an indicator of future performance, particularly when you're hearing super funds talk about their returns. Now, this is not just something to absolve super funds from any sort of responsibility. It is a very important thing to remember. Past performance is not an indicator of future performance. Now, this is one of my favorite slides that we often use in our presentations, our webinars, even our in-person seminars. So what this table shows is the performance of 8 different asset classes over 19 years. So for the purposes of this presentation, it's not the asset classes themselves that is important. It's their performance over time. Now, as you can see, looking at this table, there is not one asset class that has consistently outperformed another. In fact, the most striking feature of this chart is that over time periods, different asset classes have performed differently. Some are the best performer one year and maybe not so good the next. So when you hear that phrase, past performance is not a reliable indicator of future performance, through this table, we can see exactly what is meant by that. Now, this is why super funds may look at taking a diversified approach to investing. By spreading the funds across these different asset classes, they can balance the volatility and the returns by spreading the risk, not putting all of their eggs in one basket. So now if we have a look at this table, what we can see is those white boxes that run through the middle there. What we can see on this slide, this is a diversified portfolio. So that is a mix of all those other different asset classes. We can see that by diversifying the investment option, by making a mix of those different asset classes, it has smoothed out those peaks and troughs of those single asset classes. It provides a less volatile investment choice. So diversified investment options take different mixes of the single asset classes in all different proportions, and they create a mix that may be growth or defensive orientated depending on that mix. Another consideration that people should take when choosing their investment option is their time frame. Again, that's an individual thing. Everyone's time frame is different. They need to consider how long they will be leaving their funds invested for, or how long they'll be invested for before they need to access them. So just as everyone's attitude towards risk is different, everyone's time frame is different. What I'm going to do is hand over to Vicky, our fabulous advisor, to have a bit of a chat about these considerations. Vicky, are you there?
Hi everyone, and thanks so much, Peter, for the introduction. I'm Vicky Short. I'm a financial advisor here at Brighter Super. And today I just wanted to take you through some of the tools that we've got available just to help assist you in making decisions about your investment choices. So often when I'm talking to people about investment choice, the question I'm always asked is, what is the best way to invest my super? And as you can probably imagine, there really isn't a single investment option or risk profile that would be a fit for everybody. In fact, there are a number of things to consider when choosing the right risk profile for you. So, what is a risk profile? Well, a risk profile is an individual measure of how you feel about risk and return. So, keeping in mind there's always going to be a trade off between these two things. So, it does take into account your tolerance if the market falls, as well as your investment time frame and your desired return outcomes. So, in a perfect world, we would all love to have high returns without any falls. However, generally speaking, the more risk that you're going to take, the better return you should expect over time. However, this also means that there's a greater chance of bigger swings in your investment value. So, for example, an aggressive investment is expected to generate a higher return over the long term. However, it's also likely to fluctuate more during times of market volatility. And what this means is that your investments may generate higher returns over time. However, it will generally lose more when the market dips and produce more frequent negative return years. A more conservative investment, on the other hand, is likely to have fewer negative return years overall and may not drop as far as an aggressive investment during a downturn. However, the trade-off for this, of course, is that the returns are expected to be lower over the long term. So understanding your risk profile and your investment risk is important to help better prepare for market movements and make some informed decisions for you. The risk of being invested outside your risk profile is, if you're invested too conservatively, you could be missing out on potential returns that you could have. But if you're invested too aggressively, you may see greater falls during market instability than you're actually comfortable with. So both of these scenarios won't result in an optimal outcome, and it's really important to know that you know where you sit. So as a starting point, you can find the investment risk profiler on the Brighter Super website under the resources tab. So there are 8 questions in here that ask you how you feel about negative returns, what action you might take if there was market instability, and what your superannuation goals are. Now, after answering each of these questions, it will then provide you with your result and some information about the type of investor based on your responses that you could be. So when answering these questions, I'd really encourage you to consider the bigger picture, because when someone asks us how we feel about a negative return, we're all the same. None of us likes to see a negative return. This, though, is where it's important to understand and know your investment timeframe, because that will become relevant. So, for example, if you're in your 40s and you still have 20 years away from being able to access your superannuation, a negative return might feel a bit different from someone who's in their 60s and thinking about retiring now or in the next few years. It's really important to note that even if you are close to retirement, your investment timeframe might still be longer than you think, because retirement isn't necessarily a line in the sand where you're no longer invested in super. You might choose to keep your money in super or move it into a pension account where it's still going to be invested. And this can help to fund your retirement over the next 20 or even 30 years. Once you've completed your risk profiler questionnaire, you'll be provided information about your risk profile to help make an investment choice. And it's important to note that it doesn't provide a recommendation on where to invest your super. It's just some information to help you make that choice. If you wish to receive some help on finding the best investment for you, you can book an appointment with one of our intra-fund advisors. Now, this type of advice is included in your fund membership, and the initial conversation is usually done over the phone and takes about 20 to 40 minutes. The advisor will then do the same kind of process with you, asking you some questions just to determine your risk profile. But what can be helpful is that they will actually tailor it to your answers and also answer any specific questions that you might have about your particular scenario. Now, importantly, is they're going to actually make a recommendation as to where your superannuation should be invested based on the results of that risk profile. And they'll actually provide you with a statement of advice so that you have a written resource to refer to that's going to explain to you more about your risk profile and the investment mix that's being recommended. They'll also explain any changes to the investment fees as a result of this advice. So this is actually a really good opportunity for us to move on to our next poll question. So I'm really curious to understand if any of you have used our advice services before. Okay, so it looks like a considerable number of you have, but I think there's still some opportunity for some of you to reach out to us because, as I mentioned, at that intra-fund level, then of course there's the opportunity to take advantage of advice that's built into your fund membership. So for those of you who might not know, we do offer a wider range as well of personal advice options, and it'll be determined based on your individual needs. So if you're actually looking for specific information about making contributions or investment strategies, then again, this is where our intra-fund team is going to be able to support you. And this is at no extra cost to you because it's actually included in the cost of your administration fees with Brighter Super. We also offer a more comprehensive personal advice service, which we'll discuss in a bit more later in the presentation. So we also have a tool on our website that models your retirement and how you're tracking towards your retirement goal. Now, as with all modelling tools, it is based on metrics that may change over time. So we cannot use this as a matter of fact. However, it does help to provide some estimate on how you're tracking and what might be achievable. So depending on what your level of assets are and how much you need to fund your desired retirement lifestyle, you may only need to invest your funds in investments with lower levels of risk. But on the other hand, you may be the opposite and might need to reevaluate your financial position, your goals or risk tolerance in order to reach your retirement goals. Now, for most people, we do need to take on some risk to hit our long-term goals, and the retirement income calculator can give you some ideas on that. There is an option to toggle both your pre-retirement and post-retirement investment options, so you can play around with what kind of difference that might make to your retirement income. Now, if you are getting close to retirement, particularly if you're already over the age of 60, it might be worth getting in touch with a comprehensive financial advisor to discuss pre-retirement strategies that could assist you in meeting your retirement goals. So we're able to tailor your investments to your own individual situation, just to ensure that you're taking the right steps and finding that balance between risk and return. Now, for this type of service, it's called comprehensive advice. We do charge an advice fee. And this provides advice to members and non-members about investments within the fund and some external investments outside of superannuation. So this advice also encompasses your spouse or partner's financial circumstances. And it's usually the most helpful when you've reached a milestone birthday like 60 or 65, or you've come onto age pension, or you're actually really starting to think seriously about your retirement. So now I'm going to hand you back to Pete. Thanks, Pete.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicky. And plenty of my members have received advice from Vicky and the advice team. And I know that they definitely go away feeling a lot more secure about their investment choices. So as we've discussed before, everybody is different. So how do we achieve a consistent return for such a wide range of members? So Brighter Super does this by identifying investment opportunities that possess the following characteristics. So we do look for insulation from volatility where possible. So while no investment is risk-free, a diversified approach does seek to minimize the impact of market instability. So by including assets that have regular returns over a period of time, we are generally able to smooth out some volatility. We also seek out innovative direct investments. So these can include some pretty unique projects and infrastructure assets that have a strong market share or maybe even a monopoly. We also look for tangible assets that benefit an entire community. So an example of this would maybe be the regional livestock exchanges that we do have throughout Queensland. You can see on this slide, actually, some of the real physical assets that Brighter Super is invested in, and this is just within Queensland. We can see that there is a lot to take into account when you're considering your investment options, and it can be intimidating or sometimes even a little overwhelming to think about. The good news I have for you is that there is help available from Brighter Super. So what makes us different to other superannuation funds? Well, hands down, it is our commitment to personal service. So we actually have a dedicated team of member account specialists. You can see them on the screen there, who are here to support you. If you would like to talk to one of our staff for a one-on-one conversation of a bit more general information about your superannuation, you can always book in for a super health check. So these super health checks are 30-minute meetings, and they are at no additional cost. They are part of your membership with Brighter Super, and they do cover a wide range of topics about your super. So the team services members all over Queensland. Sometimes they are out doing face-to-face meetings. Sometimes they are doing them via digital channels. So like this webinar or doing a Teams or a Zoom meeting. That way you're able to get some general guidance on a range of superannuation topics, no matter where it is that you live or work. You can actually see up in the top corner there's a QR code. If you scan that code, you can actually book in for a meeting with one of our account specialists. A lot of knowledge in that team. Now, once you have got that general knowledge, I would always recommend that the next step is to get some more tailored personal financial advice from someone like Vicky. I'll hand over to Vicky again.
Thanks, Pete. So we do offer a range of personal advice options, and they're suited to individual members' needs, depending on what it is that you're looking for. So if you're looking for specific information about making contributions to your superannuation, or you're looking for some help with investment strategies, our IntraFund team, they're the ones who can definitely help you with that. So you can do that by booking an over-the-phone meeting, and that's at no additional cost to you. Now, two of the most common questions members ask as they approach retirement are, how much super do I need to retire? Do I have enough super? A retirement health check can actually help you with this process, just to help you understand where you're sitting. And that can be arranged through myself, a financial advisor. As we discussed earlier, we also offer both scaled and comprehensive advice service. So these services take a complete view of your financial situation, and we will assist you to tailor some advice to suit your individual needs. Now, this is generally a face-to-face meeting, and one of our advice team in Brisbane or myself here in North Queensland, we will arrange a time to meet with you. We can also arrange appointments over digital channels if you're time poor or that suits you better. Now, the cost of comprehensive advice, that's going to depend on the complexity of the advice that we provide to you. That cost might be able to be deducted from your superannuation, your Brighter superannuation account, but honestly, it's never too early to start planning for your retirement. So please do talk to us about how we might be able to support you in your superannuation journey.
Thank you, Vicky. Well, folks, I really do hope that you've enjoyed today's webinar, and I do hope that you've learned some useful information and you've been able to build your superannuation knowledge. Webinars like this, they're a great way to get specific information on a variety of topics. This is not the only webinar that we have held or that we will be holding in the future. If you do go to our website, you are able to find out what is available, and you can actually book into our next presentation and find out about the upcoming webinars and seminars. Now, if you do register for any webinars, regardless of if you actually attend, you will receive a copy of the recording the following few days after that webinar. So on that note, it's now over to you for any questions that you might have. And what I think I might actually do is I'll ask Beck to facilitate our question and answer session. Vicky, if you want to join us back on screen, just in case there's any questions you might be able to answer. Just so you know, during the question and answer, I'm just going to go back to that super health check slide. So if you do want to scan that QR code and book in for a super health check, please take this opportunity to do this. Beck, how are you with the Q&A?
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for the presentation as well, Pete and Vicky. I found it really interesting, of course, and especially how you're able to explain the different types of asset classes. But before we do start the Q&A, I just wanted to give another general advice warning. So it is important to understand that similar to the webinar itself, the information examples that we give in this Q&A session are general in nature and have been prepared without taking into account your individual objectives, financial situation, or needs. So I've got 2 questions I thought we could answer live today. The first one, since we're talking about the super health check slide, Pete, I'm going to hand this one to you, and then Vicky, I've got another one. Is there anything I could review or do as pre-homework to be best prepared for the 30-minute super health check to make sure I get the most out of the session? Pete, over to you.
Yeah, great. Well, preparation is key. Probably, as we said back at the beginning of the presentation, get online. Have a look at your member online. If you're not sure what your password is, give us a call. We can get that reset for you. But on your member online, you can see what your balance is. You can see what your investment option is. You can see what your contributions are, any insurance, your beneficiaries. There's a wealth of knowledge online. And as well, you can download your statement. The other thing I would say is jot down any questions that you have. The guys love it. If you turn up to a super health check and you've got a list of questions that you want to ask, they love it because they know that you've actually put some thought into it and you are wanting to learn about your superannuation.
Thanks so much, Pete. Now, Vicky, over to you. This has come through as a question in the Q&A. So my husband and I are both Brighter Super members. Is it sensible for us to have the same investment, for example, both growth, or should we split with one in growth and one in balanced?
Yeah, this is a really great question. And I would say to you that probably the thing that you need to be considering here is, do you have joint goals together? Is that what your objective is? Are you retiring together? Will your income be utilised together? And also, do you both have the same appetite for risk? Because I often meet couples where one perhaps has different objectives for their own money to the other. So it's a really tricky one. You could probably utilise some of the tools that we have on the website to look to see what the outcomes would be, but certainly discuss with one another what your joint goals might be and consider whether your goals would be addressed separately or not. Ultimately, and I'm always going to say this because I am a financial advisor, I think advice would be a great place for the both of you to start. Certainly speak to our intra-fund team about your investments and consider what your goals are together. Failing that, then of course come and have a chat with someone like me, a comprehensive advisor.
Exactly. Thank you, Vicky. So that's all the questions I have for now. So I'm going to hand back over to you, Pete, if that's okay.
Easy, no problem. Thanks, Beck. And thanks, Vicky. And thank you all again for taking the time to come along and attend this webinar. I do have one last question for you before we do things to a close. If I can just ask, please, overall, how satisfied were you with today's webinar? So while you are answering that, again, I really do just want to thank you all for attending today's webinar. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come. Please, if you enjoyed it, tell any of your friends, your colleagues, anyone else who may be interested. And I really hope that we see you in our next webinars. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.